Okay, guys, we're honing in on your zine and your final print project. So I just want to go over it with you before you hand it in. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to open the PDF that I've put on your assignment. In it, I've made comments on your layout that you sent me last week. And what I want you to do is I want you to open that within InDesign. You can actually open my comments within InDesign. It'll show you where they are and what I had to say about widows and spacing and everything. I didn't make you a video on how to use this because this video that I linked is everything you need to know. And this guy, Terry White, is a really good InDesign kind of spokesman. This is such an amazing new feature of InDesign. When I used to work for an in-house company, I would get multiple PDF comments on my work, and I'd have to go back and forth between the PDF and my document to make sure I made all the changes. But now you can do it within your InDesign document. So you're going to open that up, make any little changes, adjust that sort of thing first, and then you're going to finish your zine and get it ready to hand in. I want to talk to you about some of the things that are important on this. And the best way to do that is to go through the rubric. First, your chapter titles. That's pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to show you all of this with my project, which is Alvin Lustig. So wherever your titles are, they need to be styled, meaning that they shouldn't just be a larger version or a bolder version of your other type. Maybe it's a different typeface, maybe it's all caps, maybe it's spaced out, but I want to see something that's different styling in at least 3 chapter titles. Your body copy needs to be 1,000 words and it needs to be easy to read. So as far as the count, you should by now have that figured out. If you don't, you can actually find that out within InDesign by going to Window, Info. And so this is going to tell me all the words in this block of copy. So now I've unlinked this copy, so it's only counting this much. But this is 252. This is 180. So if you have your text boxes unlinked, like I do, you'll have to just add up the numbers and make sure you have 1,000 words. And then for readability, just remember some of the things that we've talked about. You want to use a typeface that's between 9 and 12 point, depending on your type. You want to use leading that is 120 to 140% of the size. So if you see mine is 10 point with 14 point leading, so that's 140%. I could go down to 12, but I have enough room and I like it to look a little bit more open. Here's things that get in the way of readability for body copy. Number 1 is a stylized typeface that you got on DeFont or 1001. These heavy, chunky, ornate typefaces are good for subheads, but they're not good for body copy. You need a clean, easy to read typeface. Also, you don't want to overly track. I've seen some body copy that's overly tracked. This is at 0, which is fine for body copy. If you're trying to fix a break or something, you can put it -10, but basically you don't mess with tracking on body copy. We definitely don't want caps for body copy. If there's only a little bit of copy and it's part of the style, that's one thing. But do you see how hard it is to read? That's because there's not that up and down of eye movement that distinguishes the words, and so it's very difficult. It's also difficult to read when the leading's too tight. That's because things are running together and we can't read them well. So make sure that you follow those rules for the body copy. The other thing is that the overall design style works with the content, and that's really important. So I've given you some designers that have very distinct style. Each one of these, Art Nouveau, Art Deco, movie graphics, Cassandra, they have a very specific style in terms of color and typography. You don't want to just plop their work in a book and not somehow pay homage to that. So if you're searching for something, like let's say that I was going to do Paul Rand. So you want to look at look at the colors of his work. Look how everything is pretty flat and graphic. So you could do your book in very kind of clean graphics. Look at some of the type that he uses and some of the shapes and try to figure out exactly what his style is. So that's what you're going to want to do for your booklet. Right? You're not going to suddenly come in with a different kind of color scheme and something like that. And remember that a color scheme is actually really easy to come up with on Adobe Color. So I could just take a quick screenshot of this, go into Adobe Color, extract a theme, and there it is. Now I can add that to my library. I could even call it my Paul Rand colors, save that, and then I could pick another brighter version of that and save that too. So work with the colors, work with the typography. When you search for this person's work, there's one more thing that I want to make sure you understand. A lot of what you're seeing is their work, but some is not. Like, for example, this piece. There are a lot of people doing work about Paul Rand. So here's a book on Paul Rand. Here is another piece that someone has put together, but these aren't actually his works. You have to be really careful and find work that is his and not just something that's been put together to celebrate him. The same thing, like this is a good example. He definitely didn't do this. This is someone else's work. Someone did an illustration of Paul Rand. It's not his style. This wouldn't be a very good contribution to your book because this is somebody else's idea of who Paul Rand is. Whereas this photo of him is him, and you could use that and do something with it, and certainly his original artwork. You'll see it a lot with David Carson. He's the most imitated graphic designer ever. A lot of stuff that comes up is actually not his. So like this is a good example. That's just a bunch of stuff put onto a page. It's meant to look like David Carson, but it's not. Here's another one that also not David Carson. This is David Carson's work. The best thing you can do is when you read the website or article that goes with the piece of work. So don't just download images without seeing what it is first. Make sure you study their design, incorporate that into the overall look of the zine. Make sure your images are actual images from the designer, at least 6 of them, proportionately scaled and 200 plus PPI. By now you should not be disproportionately scaling anything, and all your images should be 200 PPI. That's the very minimum.